Wait for it. Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blaze podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let returning guest, Miss Melissa McShane, introduce herself to the listeners and viewers at home.
Hi, I'm Melissa McShane. I'm coming to you live from a morning in India, and it's a beautiful day. It's been really rainy, but we love the rain here. It's just gorgeous. I am the author of many, many fantasy books of different fantasy subgenres, including historical fantasy and the contemporary fantasy we're going to talk about today. And I have two cats who've been around here who may make an appearance. They think that I'm the food, and they are wrong. So
they
there
do
you
get
go.
easily confused, the little fluff balls.
Yes. So
that is always a issue with cats. They seem to think they're in charge of everything. That's why dogs are better.
they do.
But that's okay.
Cats
We
are,
can take the hate
yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, our cats are very they're Persian cats, and they are extremely placid. I mean, I've never seen calmer cats. They'll start running around and playing, but like you can give them a bath and they don't fight you. You can pick them up and carry them wherever you want and they don't fight you, and they're just extremely calm except when it comes time for food, and then they get really loud and they start batting at you, and they're very polite about it, but it's clear that they think I am the dispenser of food and I'm not this week, and they're a little confused.
That would do it. And since Jana has been our co-host long enough, I don't think she needs an introduction. She's just Chief Shenanigator.
It's true. I just live here. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
I wait here in the room until JR says we have another guest, and then I perk up like a little flower and pull out.
She actually has to climb that mountain behind her uphill both ways to get here.
Well, it's a dragon. Yeah. It's very cool. I love my dragon.
Look at that dragon. It's a beautiful dragon.
He's eating my head here. I maybe didn't position that just right, but actually maybe I did position it just right.
Maybe you meant to.
All right. And since this is the Blasters and Blaze podcast, we do have to do the religion question. So are you ready for this, Melissa?
Yes, I am.
All right. Total Recall, Event Horizon, or Contact?
Actually, the only one of those I've seen is Contact. And I got to say, I liked it because I read the book that it's based on, and it's very dry and not as exciting as the movie. And so the movie was pretty cool. Yeah.
I liked Total Recall because I watched it as a young man, and the lady with the three boobs was just weird enough to catch your attention.
Yeah.
You remember that scene?
I knew you were going to go there.
But as far as movies go, Contact, that's the one where you had Jodie Foster, and she's like, they asked her if aliens were real, and she said, if not, it'd be an awful waste of real estate or something.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That was that line stuck with me. Not so much that I could quote it exactly, but my memory is Swiss cheese, people. I don't know what you want from me.
Yeah.
What about you, Jana? Do you have a favorite?
I only have vague memories of seeing any of them. I've kind of seen little bits and pieces because people in my life have gone, oh, you have to see this snippet with the lady with three boobs, and you have to see this thing. So I don't really have a winner here because I'm not familiar enough with any of them. So sad. That's all right. Move right along to our polytheistic question.
All right. And since we are polytheistic here at the Blash and Blade podcast, the witches, the craft, or practical magic?
Okay, practical magic. Again, the book is very different from the movie. In fact, the book has no actual magic in it. And so I kind of like, because I prefer the fantasy. And so I really liked the movie. I liked practical magic. I liked the family aspect of it. That was pretty cool. And then I read this one. I read the book after I saw the movie, and I'm like, oh, this is disappointing. So,
okay. What about you, Jana?
Anyway.
Of those three, it would probably be practical magic, but I might argue that Hocus Pocus is better than all three.
Yeah,
because it's silly and it's fun and I like it. And for a witchy kind of theme thing, the sisters are just too hysterical. You could tell
My
that all
favorite,
three of them were having so much fun.
we actually have reviewed 1 and 2 for our various Spooktober seasons. And my favorite line
Cool.
from book 2 is they're at the museum now of the first event of the House of the Witches, and some girl asks, "What's a virgin?" And they go, "Someone who hasn't lit a candle yet."
That's right.
So, like on your feet, parent thinking that I'm like, that was the most real scene in that whole movie.
That is totally how that works.
So I like Hocus Pocus, but it seems so seasonal. Whereas like the Craft and Practical Magic, you can kind of watch them any time of the year. Between the two, I'd go with the Craft. Although I liked Practical Magic, I have not seen the Witches. That's the only one I haven't seen.
I haven't seen that one.
But I this was sci-fi and fantasy movies from the 90s because I try to theme them so they're all grouped together. It would not be fair sometimes to compare movies made now with modern technology to add effects to something made in the black and white era, or
right.
So I try to compare like with like where possible.
Yeah.
All right. So you've answered the favorite zoo animal and favorite dinosaur so many times, but I'm hoping you're going to give me a different animal today. But what is your favorite zoo animal?
Well, I can't remember what I said the last time. My favorite zoo animal is the tiger, because I have been to the zoo where they had the tiger in an enclosure, but it's got a walkway above where the people hallway is. So you've got the glass walls on either side, and then there's a glass walkway that goes above it so that they have a big enclosure. And we were there, and there was a tiger prowling around, and you could totally tell that it was going to hunt and kill us if it could get free. I mean, you could see it in its eyes that it was looking at us and sizing us up as prey, and that was scary and impressive all at once. So I'm going to go with the tiger for that experience.
Okay. What about a favorite fantasy animal? Something that doesn't exist, but is in speculative fiction literature.
Oh, everybody says dragons, because they're dragons. I write a lot of monsters in the War Master series, but for fantasy animals, oh gosh, they're all great. I don't know, probably the Pegasus today, because the idea of being able to fly on a horse is kind of cool. And I was never one of the horsey girls, crazy about horses. But as I get older, I'm more appreciative of them. And so a winged horse is pretty cool.
Okay. What about you, Jana? Do you have a favorite zoo animal?
Oh, I have lots of favorite zoo animals, but since we're talking about both zoo animals and fantasy animals, so one of the things that they had here in Utah many, many years ago, and it's still stuffed and hanging around at the Hogle Zoo, is a liger, which was a experiment where they got a crossbreed between a lion and a tiger. So they have Shasta the liger, and she is one of the mascots, I guess, of the Hogle Zoo. Did not live for a long time, but she did live to adulthood and was totally sterile. You couldn't do anything with it, but they did prove that you can mate together a lion and a tiger, but that it was probably not such a great idea. But I remember seeing the stuffed Shasta ever since I was just a little girl. It was a long, long time ago. And now there's ethics that would probably not allow them to ever try this again. But we do have Shasta the liger, and it's kind of cool.
Now, when the lion and the tiger made the baby, did they go, "Oh my"? Because lions and tigers.
I wasn't there. I was too young, so
not gonna be privy to their mating secrets. Let them have some privacy.
I don't know. I've always been a sucker for the wolf, so I guess if we're going fantasy, I like the shifters, werewolf type stuff, but I don't know if I prefer it as a curse or where they have some level of control, because both have fun for different reasons.
Yeah,
but it's something
different
about
kinds of stories.
Something about the werewolf and the wolf shifters. Now, there is a story so I used to do ghostwriting back in the day, and one of the ladies I used to write for, she does not write anymore, and this story never got published. But she wrote one where this big biker dude was like harassing this little old lady because she was parked at the bar to use their phone. It was set in a time before cell phones, so she's stopping to use the phone, and he just bumped into her, and he was really mean. So she scratched him, and he ends up becoming a were poodle because he's a big burly dude who's like just mean to everybody. So she made him the cutest, tiniest, itsy bitsy little dog. For his shift, and it was just so hilarious. Like she kept it true, but it was also hilarious, just the juxtaposition. So
that's great.
I like the shifters, especially when you could take unique approaches to it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll say shifter since it's generic enough to let you be whatever.
Covers many things.
All right, and since it is the summer for you over there in India. And you were at the height of the heat season.
Nope. I'm in the monsoon season. Heat is actually from April to mid-May.
Okay.
And that's their summer. And that's when school is out and nobody goes anywhere. And, even the Indians are not happy about it. They don't love the heat. And but it's still very warm all the time. It's still technically like summer all the time. It's just not India summer.
Okay. Well, since we do try to be civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. I'm going to ask you, what do you drink when you're in the India weather right now? What are you drinking?
Okay, so I drink a lot of water, which is great, but I have a favorite sparkling water beverage that is lemon and ginger with real ginger juice, and it has a nice little kick, and it's carbonated, and it's very cooling. And so I turn on my ice maker because the fridge doesn't have an ice maker. I turn on my little counter ice maker, and I get myself a cup of ice and just take the bottle, and I drink all morning, which sounds terrible, actually, now that I come to think of it.
Crazy.
Drinking all morning, like, Ernest Hemingway with a glass of bourbon. But
so ginger, isn't that like a really, I don't know, to me ginger's a weird flavor. I don't know that I would want that in a drink.
Oh no, ginger is wonderful. I love ginger beer, and there's a place called the Strap Tank down in like Springville in Utah, and they serve a ginger beer that will take the nose hairs right off you. It's so strong, and I like really strong flavors. So I don't think that's really a taste for everyone, but the ginger drink I have is just very mild. It's just a little bit of a burning kick that goes with the carbonation. So it kind of enhances the carbonation in this case, and it's really very good. And it's a non-sugar sweetener, but because of the ginger, you can't taste the aftertaste of the sweetener, and that's another thing I like. So it's really good.
So this is the most important question we're going to ask you tonight. But for your ice maker, squares, circles, or cubes?
They're actually little pellets, like little bullets. I love
the pellets ones. That is why I like Chick-fil-A drinks, because their ice is just divine.
Yeah, it's great. It makes little pellets, and it can make them large or small. It's very limited and very basic, but it'll be little pellets about yay big, and they're, because it's India and the temperature in the house is quite comfortable to us, but it's not really cool. And so the ice tends to melt, and so it's never really hard and solid. It's very, very chewy, crunchy. And so I really like my little ice maker. It's been great. But the only problem is, because the ice is kind of damp, when you put it in because you make a whole bunch and then you put it in your freezer because we do have an ice like bucket in the freezer, but there's no ice maker. It's just there so you can put your ice in it. And so the ice all sticks together when it actually gets frozen. And then you have to break it up with a knife. And but the little pellets are great. I really like those.
So you got that good high quality ice.
Yeah.
Now, do you use local water, or do you pour filtered water in there?
the water here is safe to drink. It's treated and everything, but everyone drinks bottled water, and it's really cheap. You can get a liter for about $0.25 in American money. And so we get bottled water, and we get the big 20-liter tanks that go in a water cooler. And so what we do is we fill up a liter bottle and keep it in the fridge to keep it cool. And then we pour that out and we fill it from the tank on the counter. And because that's not refrigerated. And then our upstairs water cooler is one of those units that's hot and cold water. And so we just get cold water out of that. Everybody here thinks we're crazy. They think the warm water, the room temperature water is the way to go, and hot water is even better. They will serve you hot water at a restaurant, and it's actually not bad. I mean, it was a surprise to me that it was kind of soothing, all things considered, and it was pretty good. So just different, just very different.
Okay. I don't know. I can't get past the hot water thing. I know the same logic was what the Brits used when we were overseas, where they'd stop everything at noon for their tea.
Yep.
I wanted the ice all the time. And so
me too.
I
told one of our friends here that early on, like the first time we were here, that I missed ice cubes, that I missed ice water. And he looked at me like I'd suggested killing a puppy and said, ice water, no. And it turned out that he loves hot water, and he carries like an insulated coffee flask, but he fills it with just water and he just drinks that. And so he thought I was nuts that I wanted ice water. You know, why would I want that? And it's just different.
Different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yep.
Well, and some of the logic is that ice is taking the place of precious other things. I found this when I was in Scotland, that you could get the ice, but the ice was in a big barrel on the side of we'd go to pubs and we'd get pots and all these other kinds of things, and they were beautiful to eat. And then you'd get your soda or whatever, and they're like, no, you want to fill the pint all the way to the top with the soda because there's no such thing as free refills.
Right.
So whatever drink you're getting, you need to fill the entire glass with the drink. And if you're crazy enough that you want ice, then drink the top couple of inches off, and then you'd go to these barrels in the corner and shovel in the ice. But they never served it over ice because that would be ripping you off for the amount of soda or whatever else you were drinking that you would get. So I think for some places, that's the logic there, is that you don't want to give up the space. You don't want to pay for a pint of ice. You want to pay for a pint of soda and then add the ice later.
Yeah, here McDonald's is the only place that will serve it with ice. I guess I think Burger King will too, but we don't go to Burger King. But you go to McDonald's, and I got one time I met that problem because they filled my cup practically full of ice and then poured the Coke in, and I had practically no Coke. So and there's no option. You can specify no ice, but you can't specify light ice, which is what I would want. And so there's really, you're kind of stuck either way. So yeah, and they don't do free refills. I learned to sip my drink living here, because you don't just get a nice waiter coming by to top off your glass.
Okay. So what about Taco Bell? Are there any Taco Bells there?
Yeah, there's Taco Bell. I haven't been there, but I know there is because we've talked to other people from the US who come here, and they'll look around because it's kind of fun to go to American chains here because they do the food differently. Obviously there's no beef, but even the chicken is always spicy. So like, and KFC, it is not the same 11 herbs and spices. They are completely different. It is a completely different taste. So, but I do know there is Taco Bell. We haven't been to it. I think it's in the mall.
I just know at some point in time in our future, it will be the only restaurant left.
Yeah.
Possible.
It's the only one to survive the restaurant wars.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so we've interviewed you several times. You've talked about all of your books, but I don't think we've really gotten down into like how you became a fan of like speculative fiction. Was it always something you were interested in, or did you come to it later in life? Like, how did you discover your love of that kind of reading before you were a professional book reader?
Yeah.
There was a before?
When I was about 11 or 12, my best friend introduced me to the Prydain Chronicles by Lloyd Alexander, and it was the first real speculative fiction. It's a young adult fantasy series influenced by Welsh mythology, and I was hooked utterly. It was like I had been waiting my whole life to find this kind of book. And so she would give me recommendations, and then I started finding stuff on my own. And so there was a period of about 2 years where I was reading everything I could find. And it was a great time. It was a great time for young adult fantasy. It was a great time for, so this was the early 80s. And there was just so much. And it was the first time I'd gone into the adult section of the library. I don't have any horror stories about people not wanting me to be there. I thought I would. I mean, I went in, and our library, I lived in upstate New York, and the local library was famous for having for its children's section. And so I didn't have to leave that for a long time because it had so much in the way of speculative fiction that I didn't need to venture out. But finally I did, and I'm like wandering into the adult section thinking, are they going to kick me out? What are they going to do? And nobody batted an eyelash. It was great. I remember reading, I read so many things that I was probably too young for, like the Stephen Bruce Vlad Tolstoy novels, and Anne McCaffrey and Robin McKinley, Patricia McKillip, Robert Heinlein, Diana Wynne Jones. It was just amazing. I think it wasn't my first speculative fiction, because I know I had read The Lord of the Rings by the time I was about 9, because I remember I read it for one of those reading programs that they used to do in elementary school, where you got, you read so many books and you got like a balloon to release. And so we, before, back when you could do that. And so I know I'd read fantasy and things like that, but it hadn't stuck. And this was just the right time and the right series of events. And I've been reading speculative fiction ever since.
Did you ever find, was it Tad Williams, the Green Rider, I think?
Tad Williams is the Dragonbone Chair. Kristen Britton is the Green Rider.
Okay, I'm mixing those two up. I remember both of those fondly.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those.
Are you old enough that you remember the Pizza Hut reading challenge where you'd get a free personal pan pizza?
I remember that, yeah.
Did you just question a lady's age?
I'm old.
No, I implied she was young, Jana.
Yeah, no, it was before my, it was after my time, but I have 8 brothers and sisters, and so there was always someone who was in a reading program somewhere. And so my kid brothers and sisters would do that. And yeah, those were the days.
So the trick with the Pizza Hut one, the reason that made them money is because they knew when you come in, you're not coming in by yourself, right? You're a kid. Right. So your parents are going to come in there, and chances are that one little tiny pan pizza they give you, and however many kids are at the table, is going to be earned back and then some by the drinks and whatever the parents do. And of course, the parents want to take you because they want to reward you for having completed this reading. It's brilliant marketing. They need one of those for adults.
I think so too. I think the time has come that we need to encourage reading in adults by, promoting, I don't know, fun stuff. Pizza Hut could do it, but think of all the possibilities.
Cheesecake.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I like that idea. Mm-hmm.
Or like nachos, tacos. I do a lot for tacos. I wouldn't do much for Klondike Bar, but give me a taco and we might do some dirty deeds cheap.
Mhm.
So is that
Oh,
something
yeah.
you're able to get over there? Tacos? Since I know they don't do beef, but
Well, obviously Taco Bell is one, but it's chicken or veg
okay.
fillings. We go to a restaurant called Taquitos, which is like, I don't know if you have Cafe Rio in your part of the woods, but it's
No.
basically Mexican food, and they have different fillings and different ways you can eat it. So like soft tacos, tostadas, salads, and then you go in and they fix it up with whatever toppings you want. And it's the only place in all of Kochi that I can find sour cream. There is no sour cream. You can't buy it in the store. They don't like yogurt is where they have their it fills that same niche, and
Mhm.
so they don't have sour cream. And that's very frustrating to me because one of my favorite foods is baked potatoes with sour cream and butter.
Oh yeah.
And they have great potatoes here.
Mm.
They're really good potatoes, but there's no way to get sour cream. And I am working myself up to the nerve to talk to the manager at Taquitos and ask him to hook me up. But I'm not entirely sure which one he is. I think he's the guy we see there sometimes who's not wearing the Taquitos uniform. Um, but communication is sometimes difficult. So I don't know. Someday I'll get desperate enough.
You got the stuff, I got the money. That's what you have to say.
That's right. That's
Yep,
right.
yep.
Yeah,
Back
What are
behind
you
the
in for?
store.
Illicit sour cream deal.
that's right.
So when did you discover that you wanted to take your reading and write stories? You know, even before maybe your first one was published. Did you always like telling stories?
I liked writing, but in the sense that I was moderately good at it, and so I got recognition in school, and so you do the stuff that you get recognized for, and but I wasn't very good. I was okay. I I fooled a lot of people, and mostly what I was writing was nonfiction. I did not write a lot of fiction, and so it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that I was kind of flailing about for something to do because I don't like being idle, and I had tried all these different crafty things um, as like more than a hobby, but less than a full-time business, and none of them had worked. And we were in a role-playing game, and I was playing a cleric of the god of death. And I had some ideas about how that would work and what the worship of the god of death would look like. And so that campaign kind of collapsed, but I still had the character idea. And on a whim, I thought I'm just gonna write it. I'll see if I can write a book. And it turned out really well. And so I wrote that, and I go to my husband and I said, I really enjoyed doing this. This was fun. And he says, well, do you have any other stories? And I said, well, kinda. I have this one story I've been sort of telling myself for the last 20 years, and it's an interesting character, and there's interesting stuff going on, but there's really no plot. And we talked about it, and he came up with an idea for a plot that would go around this character. And I went on and I wrote Agent of the Crown, which is in my Tremontaine series. And then from there, I had a story about the main character's grandmother. And then, well, that's 50 years between the two books. What happens in the middle? And it just sort of went from there.
So, well, first off, it's thank you for visiting us from the future because there's no way you're 40. So, it's really cool. You have the time machine and you use it to visit us.
Thank you. Yes.
Hopefully your flux capacitor does not break on this trip.
Oh, gosh, I hope not.
And maybe you can tell us why 88 miles per hour was like the clinch point. Like, I don't know why that was the number, but maybe you could explain it for us someday.
I'm afraid that tech is proprietary. I'm not allowed to speak, but
well, hell. All right. Jana, she won't share. She's got all the cool stuff, but she won't share.
She's like that. It happens. That's, that whole futuristic thing. Okay, so that's the back history, but we're coming towards a half hour, so I want to pivot the conversation to talk about The Last Oracle because there is a lot to talk about here.
Before we do that, because we're going to do the commercial in a minute, I wanted to say that we've made the joke about the War Master / War Hamster series a lot. And I will say that right now the anthology is being put together. We are missing the intro that Melissa is writing as we speak.
I just emailed that to you.
Okay, I haven't checked. was puppy
Yeah.
day. We've been working on training him on the leash.
Sure. Yeah, but now you have it. So there it is.
And Chloe Gardner's going to send us a second story, so we have enough that we don't feel like we're being cheap with the word counts for offering it at a normal price. And as soon as those two come in, and Chloe writes wicked quick. See what I said there? Wicked, wicked. For all our Boston fans. But yeah, so as soon as that story comes in, we should have that out. So by the time this episode airs, you should have the War Hamster anthology series. And the stories are kind of all over the place. Some of them are spec fic, or excuse me, some of them are sci-fi, some of them are fantasy, but they all have the War Hamster.
That's right.
So, and hopefully that will, now when we say War Hamster, we can be like, oh, check this book out.
Yeah. It's not just a tongue twister.
No, not at all. Although when we made that, I don't think I've told this story on air, and then we'll play the commercial. So we've been going back and forth, Melissa and I, and everybody on the regular guest about the War Hamster War Master thing. And so you and I, Melissa, on one episode, we're like, you know what? One, our calendar is both clear. We're going to write this as a trilogy just to get it out there for the fun of it.
That's right.
So I was telling my mother that we were going to write the War Hamster series, and she thought I was saying were hamster, like werewolf, were hamster. And so we went back and forth. She said were hamster. I'm like, no, war hamster. She goes, oh, a war were hamster. I'm like,
oh my.
But then would it be a war where or where? Like it went back and forth with the tongue twister. Yeah. And now we've got shifter war hamsters. So I'm not sure how that'll look in fiction, but it's been.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah.
It'll be something. I don't know, great, but it'll be something. Speaking of great, we're going to pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the woman. Boom!
For 5 years, Adarin has waited to get the call. The event when the system controlling her world grants her a class and appropriate skills to become an adventurer. When the system makes her a War Master, Adarin eagerly sets out on her first journey. The problem? Her class is useless. No one believes a War Master is anything but a joke. They aren't strong fighters, they have no magic, and they don't have powerful skills. But Adarin hasn't waited all these years to give up now. With the help of a young man from another world, she's going to prove this War Master can do anything.
War Master 1, Dungeon Spiteful, by Melissa McShane.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. We appreciate you doing that. But now let's talk about the series that brought us here, the last Oracle series. The first question is, where did the idea for this universe come from?
Okay. So it actually came about as a writing exercise. I was feeling like I didn't have enough depth in what I was writing in terms of description. I've never really been great at description. I mean, I don't know how it comes across, but it's difficult for me to be thinking in those terms because I always want to get to the dialogue and the character interaction. And so I have a minor superpower of being able to find rare and unusual books in chaotic situations, like say a thrift store where the books are not alphabetized. There is or was a bookstore in Phoenix that was a regular used bookstore, but they didn't alphabetize. They would shove the books in any old way, and the most they ever did was group them by genre. And I found so many unbelievable books because I'm a collector. This is my library here. This is a picture of my library back home. And so I collect books, and I love finding something new and unusual. And it turned out that if they were not organized, then I was finding stuff that I didn't expect. And so I was thinking indeterminacy, it's anything could be in there because it's so unorganized. You don't have any idea what is there. So it could just magically appear that you find the lost works of Shakespeare because nobody knows that it isn't there. There's no way to prove that it is or isn't. And so I had this idea for a bookstore where you could find anything at random because nobody knew the contents. And I don't remember where the rest of the idea came from, but the exercise that I was doing was describing this young woman who's waiting to get a job in this musty, disorganized bookstore that's off the beaten path. And so I started writing it, and I piled in a lot of ideas that didn't end up making it into the series. But so I'm working it through, and I get to the end of the first chapter, the first section, and I had thrown in a plot, apparently. And so I kept writing, and by the time I got to the fourth chapter, I'm like, this is a book. This could be something. And I went back and cleaned it up. I had to change from third person to first person, which it just seemed more natural. I had never written any contemporary fantasy before. And I don't tend to read a lot of urban fantasy or contemporary fantasy. It just, I like the more secondary world kind of thing. And so it's just not something I have a ton of experience with, but I knew enough to know the basic tropes. And so I just went through and cleaned it up and started writing some more, and it goes really, it went really fast. It was a couple of weeks that it took to write the first book. And then I thought, okay, this has definitely got series potential. And so that's where the series came from. Was we had I set it in Portland because I was born in Portland, Oregon, and it's really the only city aside from Salt Lake that I know in any detail. And urban fantasy, it needs to be a fairly big city. For what I was writing, it needed to be a city. And so I set it in Portland. My family helped me brainstorm some of the magical aspects. I think my husband is responsible for the idea of humans gaining magic by having a splinter of some substance embedded in their heart, and it unlocks their ability to tap into magic. And so they all kind of helped brainstorm, and then there it was, 9 books. So
Well,
I
okay, and while you're describing, stop that, JR.
No, I was just saying, I
have insider information. There's a thing she needs to tell you.
I just want to say I like the concept of Schrodinger's bookstore.
Yes.
I did that. I've seen
That's
a
pretty cool.
fantasy series that was one of the Australian ones that made it to Netflix, where it was set at a bookstore, but it was like a magic door where they went to the other whatever for the magic school for kids. But the bookstore was more just the entrance instead of the plot. So I like that you made the bookstore matter, especially as we're all reading.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a real selling point for most readers, is the bookstore being, and the bookstore, as the series progresses, it turns out to be more self-aware than they realize at first. And so the plot, the ultimate series resolution hinges on the bookstore being basically sapient on some level. So, okay, Jana.
Well, okay, so the thing you have to tell them, because you've been talking about the bookstore, is about the New Orleans bookstore that you went into that inspired some of the absolute and utter chaos because of the amazing place that it is. And then once you finish with that, I have other questions.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I keep forgetting. The actual physical bookstore was inspired by the Arcadian bookstore in the French Quarter in New Orleans. When we went on our second trip there, we went bookstore hopping, and the French Quarter has a number of really great used bookstores and new bookstores. There's the William Faulkner House, and anyway, so the Arcadian is there. There is no organization, and there are books piled on the shelves that are nailed to the walls. They have milk crates, I don't know, the plastic trays that you get milk or soda bottles in, and those are full of books. There are shelves, passages that you can't go more than one person at a time. They're so narrow. And in one place, you look up and there's a box fan perched at kind of an angle over 2 of the shelves. So it's like a bridge over the shelves. And it's extraordinary. And again, I found some of my best finds were from that store. And so the physical representation of the bookstore Abernathy's in the series is based on the Arcadian. And it's really remarkable. I hope it's still there. We haven't been to New Orleans in a long time, but it had been there for very many years, and it still survives despite being completely disorganized. It's extraordinary. It's really beautiful.
See, big magic.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
so that JR stops poking me in the chat, we do have one of those questions that we love to ask because we know that families listen to the show. So for
Mhm.
The Last Oracle, what's kind of the age range? How young is too young? Do we have any content concerns that parents should know about, or is this a everybody all the time? Where would you place the ideal starting age for readers, and then we figure it goes up to 999?
It's adult people doing adult things, by which I mean paying taxes rather than having sex, although they do that too. But there's no real on-screen sex. There's no explicit content. There's some swearing, but nothing really violent. I would say, for interest's sake, probably 16, just because it is, grown-ups. But I think you could be as young as 14 and read it. I mean, but I say that about a lot of things when I'm talking about books to parents, that you're looking at wanting to supervise your younger children when they're reading grown-up books, just because I remember being that age and not having anyone to talk to about what I was reading. And I don't know that I ever read anything worse than The Clan of the Cave Bear that would require excessive explanation. But I think it's good for parents and kids to be involved in their reading together. But as to reading, it's probably PG-13. So yeah, I think the 15, 16 is probably about the age that you'd be interested in reading it. My husband says that I captured the young, well, at the time millennial, but the preoccupations of 20-something young people who are just starting out in life and learning to deal with becoming adults. And so I think it's of particular interest to that age group. It's I've marketed it as new adult occasionally, although that designation seems to have fallen out of favor, at least in terms of what people care about. But yeah, that's the answer to that.
Very cool. It occurs to me that this might actually be helpful if we read the blurb that you have for it, because it's a really good blurb. So
Okay.
the blurb on Amazon is a bookstore with a million secrets. Helena Davies, just wants a job that will get her out of her parents' basement. Instead, by the end of her first day at Abernathy's bookstore, she has a dead boss in the basement and the news that she is now part of an endless magical war. Abernathy's is the world's only living oracle, and Helena is now its custodian. Without any training, she must navigate her new world and find a place for herself within it. But there's still a murderer on the loose, and Helena might be next on his list. So I like that. I think it helps to give us kind of a glimpse into what that plot is, because you've given us that background. And as a reader, one of the things that I love and that I want to steer you into talking about is your secondary characters. Because Helena is our urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy heroine. She's spunky. She's got a lot going on and a lot to juggle, and has been dropped right into the middle of a magical plot. This is very much a trope of the genre. But then we have some really great secondaries, because we have her bestie. We have the love interest. We have her, well, okay, Lucia's not exactly her boss, but she could
Well,
be. So
effectively.
let's talk about some of those secondary characters and how you really captured those and how they make for a stronger book altogether.
Okay. Helena has a best friend named Viv, and I based her on my daughter, down to the pink hair. And my daughter has had pink hair for so long that my son-in-law, who has never known her without pink hair, saw pictures of her before and did not recognize her, because the pink hair is so part of her personality. And she's fun and bubbly and crafty and kind of random. And so I wanted someone who would be sort of a foil for Helena in that respect, because Helena is very sensible and down to earth and kind of boring, and she's not looking for adventure, which is what makes the story work. I think that she steps up to take responsibility, even though it's not anything she ever expected or wanted. And then they have Judy. And Judy, in the first book, expected to become the custodian of the bookstore. She had been trained to do it. And the previous owner, the murdered boss, kind of sidestepped her in hiring Helena. And so Judy is working against Helena in the first book because for good reasons, because Helena knows nothing about the magical world that she's stepped into. And Judy is afraid, justifiably, that Helena's going to screw everything up. And so they start as antagonists. And by the end of the first book, Judy is not really a friend yet, but closer. And her development over the series was one of the great delights I had in writing it, because she's very different from both Helena and Viv. And yet she ends up being just as good a friend in a different way. And she's a lot of fun. She's tiny and feisty and kind of dark, and like her phone plays the funeral march as its ringtone. And so she's a lot of fun. And then
but great fashion sense. She has amazing fashion sense. She and Viv.
She is very retro, very, very retro, very fashionable. And so I have the three of them as their best friends eventually, and the three of them working together that I think makes the story stronger than if it was just Helena going it alone. We have Lucia, who is the boss of the local magical source. They call it a node. And so she's responsible for the Gunther node. And she is Italian on some level. Nobody's really dared to ask her if she was born in Italy or if she's just, of Italian descent, because she's scary and she is tough. And there's a lot of powerful women in this series. The leader of the organization that monitors all the nodes, the neutralities, is a woman, and she's also very tough. We have Laverne Sturlogson, who is in charge of the neutralities. We have Lucia. We have other powerful women who are not girl bossy in any way, but are competent and making the world work. And then, of course, all the great male characters. We have Malcolm Campbell, who is ultimately Helena's love interest and very, very hot. And
he is so hot. He makes us very
really
happy.
I mean, it's like this is contemporary fantasy. This is urban fantasy. You got to have a hot love interest, and so he's a powerful ex-military fighter of monsters. And we have later Darius Wallach, who is a mad scientist, and he's really fun, really, really smart, really pushing the boundaries of what's known. And I don't know who else.
Jeremiah.
Just Jeremiah, who was a throwaway character and was just too ideal. He's a geek. He's a nerd. He wears nerdy T-shirts and Birkenstocks with socks, and he is a powerful staff fighter. And he ends up being Viv's love interest, and he was just somebody completely random that I threw in the third book to give a different point of view on the situation that was going on. And then he just kept going. And I like characterization. I like creating new characters. I like thinking about how people interact. I love exploring interactions, not just romantic, but friendships and enmity and antagonism, and having to work together when you don't necessarily have the same goal. And you do that with a lot of different interesting characters. So this series is really about its characters.
Awesome. So something else that I want to hit on. So I've read pretty much all of Melissa's books. I like reading Melissa's books, and I edit for some of them.
Yay.
Well, a big chunk of them. It makes me happy.
Most of them.
But
Most of them.
yeah, but you do such a great job with magic systems. And this one has some of my very favorite magic that I think you put in anything. In particular, I love the glass magic because it's based on resonance and harmonies and all that kind of stuff. So as you came up with magic systems, what was your favorite thing to work with? What were the things that you were inspired and you went, oh yeah, this is the thing that makes me happy?
Okay, so I was talking about how the way it works. Okay, to give a little background into the series, the idea is that there are all these different realities floating around, and some of them brush up against each other and come into contact, and then people can cross over between them. And in our world, about 700 years before the present, a parasite reality latched onto our world, and these monsters started coming through. And they tap into magic easily, but humans can't touch their own magic. Like, everybody has magic running through them like blood, but they can't access it. They can't do anything with it. And so in this series, the humans came up with a way of tapping magic so that they could fight the monsters. And they do that by implanting an aegis, which is a sliver of some material, into their heart in a sort of semi-real way. And that was my husband's idea. We were talking about it on a drive home on the same drive home after we were actually in Washington at my parents' house when I started doing this. And so we're driving home from Washington and we're talking about it. I said, well, I need a magic system. And my husband was the one who said, well, what if they did that? What if they just stuck a piece of steel into their heart? And we all went, ew, that's really gross. And then we said, that's actually pretty cool. So so the fun part was in thinking about, well, what substances have magical resonance? Well, wood is traditionally, magical wood. Rowan and oak are magical, associated with magic. And well, we'd already said steel. Well, what about bone? What about glass? And so coming up with different, we ended up with 6 different types of magus based on the different types. So each material has a different kind of resonance and gives you some of the same basic powers, but then gives you something a little beyond that. So the steel magi and the wood magi were the first ones created, and they are immune to having their magic drained by a monster. In addition to having ability to control the metal or the wood around them based on the affinity with the aegis that they have. Bone magi are healers. Glass magi were the most recently developed, and they were developed by Hitler during the Second World War as a way of spying on his enemies. And so there's a whole backstory about the magical war going on while World War II was being fought, and how the different magi were at odds with each other based on whether they were fighting for Hitler or fighting for the Allies. And so after that, it was just, well, we're not going to waste this just because an evil man is the one who created it. There's all this potential. And so glass magic is for discernment, is for seeing secret things and seeing through illusions. And then there's, oh gosh, now I can't remember my own series. What did I say? Wood, steel, glass,
Wood,
bone,
steel, glass,
paper,
bone,
paper magi are illusionists. Oh, that's really embarrassing. I can't remember the 6th one. I'm just thinking of the 7th one, which is invented in book 6, that they don't use. Somebody else invented it. The enemy invented it. Anyway, so the idea of, I like magic systems, which is kind of funny because in my reading, I kind of prefer the magic that's more organic and less systematic. But I like creating magic systems. I think it's a lot of fun looking at a possibility and saying, all right, what would happen if this were true? If you could access your magic, what would you do with it? And so going forward in creating magic system, that's really what I enjoy, is seeing the ramifications of one idea, basically.
Okay. Is the series done right now? 9 books are out. Is the series done?
Yes, the series is finished, but I have a sequel series that takes place about 10 years after the end of The Last Oracle. It's called The Living Oracle, and it's about what happens after the end of the Long War. The series wraps up the war that they've been fighting, and then the Living Oracle has a new threat and a new challenge. Oh, there it is.
And that's really all we can say about it because it is so
Yeah.
phenomenally spoilery to even tell you
Yeah,
how the
I
first one
can't.
starts.
I just can't tell you.
These are series that are best read in order. Read The Last Oracle first, and then read The Living Oracle, and you're going to be really confused.
Yeah, don't go reading The Living Oracle first, because it will ruin this series. Yeah, there they are.
So, was there a reason you took the covers the way you did? Because this is makes it different compared to what else is out there for all the venues of fantasy.
Right. Okay, so this series was first published by Curiosity Quills when I was with them, and its original cover is more of a typical urban fantasy. There's a girl on the cover with a book, and it was cute, and it fit the genre, I think. But the problem with doing covers with human models is getting enough images of that same model to make it consistent. And the problem was that when it came time to publish the second book, the Book of Peril, they show me the cover mock-up, and I'm like, that's different. They said, no, this is the same model. We took it from the same series. It looks nothing like her. And I never really liked it. Well, things fell apart with CQ, and so I took the rights back. And I am not. This is contemporary fantasy rather than urban fantasy, and the distinction is a little bit fine. But urban fantasy tends to be a little more hard-edged, a little more kick-ass heroine, a little bit more traditional fairy tale monsters. So you get vampires and werewolves and fae and stuff like that. And so I didn't want anyone coming into the series expecting something like that. This is a lot more soft-edged, for all that there's violence and monsters and blood and stuff. And I'd been looking at covers and noticing, and this was 2018, I think. It might have been 2019 that I started re-releasing the books. I don't remember. It's been a while. But I had met an author who was also a cover designer at a workshop. And when I needed to recover the books, I went to her and I said, well, this is what I have in mind. What can we do? And she's very thorough. She's an excellent cover designer, Alexandra Brandt. And so she went and she researched the covers in the genre, and she came back and said, you're right. This is where it's trending toward this object oriented cover design. And so we talked it through, and I said, I think it'd be cool if it made it look like a book, because the title actually refers to the book itself. There's no book of secrets within the story. This book that you're reading has secrets. This book that you're reading has peril, et cetera, et cetera. And so I wanted the covers to look like you were actually, this was just a book. And I think she did a great job. I think she nailed it. And so we would go through and she'd say, all right, well, what do you think for this, for the cover design and for the central object? And we'd go back and forth. There was only one that we struggled with, and that was book 6. And for that one, I ended up finding an object, and I don't think either of us was really satisfied with it, because it doesn't really match the other books in terms of style. I mean, they're all a little different because they don't all come from the same source, but it was okay. It was enough. And so that's where excuse me. Sorry about that. That's where the covers came from.
Okay. So given all the things that you've done to the character, specifically the main character who thought she was just getting a job and ended up with something else, if you met her in a dark alley, because this one's Garrett who sent you the War Hamster plaque, likes to ask, if you met these characters in a dark alley, are you going to be okay?
Oh yeah, Helen is not scary. I mean, she's
They'd be
tough.
friends.
She's tough, but she's still just a young woman. You know, she likes young, womanly, girly things. I mean, she's much more feminine than I am. I mean, she voluntarily wears dresses and stuff like that, and so. But yeah, she's. They're all real friendly. It's the monsters you have to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have a favorite monster in the series?
Well, they're all Lovecraftian monsters, is what they
Oh,
are.
love it.
They're
Okay.
yeah,
horrors.
there's a horror element to it. So they're not like typical monsters. They're all a little different, but they're all scary. And one of the things that the humans do that they're at odds about, the human warriors, is there's a faction that has learned to capture the invaders, the monsters that are attacking, and tame them so that they can be used to fight against their own kind. And so when they're tamed, they're called familiars. And one group thinks that this is a great idea, and the other group thinks this is dangerous and stupid, and they've been fighting about it for 70 years. And so some of the books hinge on, well, what happens if a familiar breaks its binding? And what are the monsters really capable of doing to hurt people? And why is Helen not affected? That was also a throwaway line. She gets attacked by a monster in book 2, and instead of dying in agony, she's sort of euphoric. And I just put that in there at random. I had no idea what was going on. And there's just the story of this series that I do stuff and then I have to live with it later. But then later that leads to a lot of things that some of them are not revealed until that sequel series, that you don't learn until like book 3 of the sequel series, that why it is that Helena has these differences. Because they keep getting little bits of why is it that she can do this, and she's not super special. She has a few differences, but they don't make her an incredible warrior, or the magic anime girl or anything like that. But it all feeds back into what's going on with the monsters and with the world around them.
Well, and that's part of what I love, though, is that at no point does she become a kick-ass urban fantasy typical heroine.
Right.
She does awaken certain magic, but it's within her job as the custodian, and it's within some of those natural things that you gave her. She doesn't rival Malcolm for who can kick the most butt. He definitely is the butt kicker in the family. And so I love that because it keeps her, she is very relatable to at all points, because she has to very often think her way out of trouble instead of being able to fight her way out of trouble, because she doesn't have those skills. And you see her thinking about, okay, who can I call in? She's very quick to call for help when she needs it. And I like that too, that it's something different. And minor spoiler here, but it's one of my very favorite things, because I think that a lot more urban fantasy heroines need this. At one point in the series, she goes into therapy because urban fantasy stuff is scary. And she actually does the grown-up emotional thing eventually, and talks to somebody about all of this stuff is kind of scary. And it was this nice, very human touch that reminds us that when real people go through lots of stuff, at a certain point, you're a little overwhelmed. And that was kind of a nice note to say, this is okay too. And she didn't run away, but she did get the help that she needed.
Yeah, and I had a reader tell me, I was really scared when he introduced the therapist. I was afraid she was going to turn out to be a monster, but like a human monster, not a literal monster, like somebody evil. And I was really glad that you portrayed the therapy as being positive, and I was pleased that it came across that way, because it's kind of a subplot in the book where it happens, but I think it was an important point because you can only go so far before you're traumatized by stuff, and by that time a lot of stuff had happened to Helena, and I thought it was very realistic to point out that we're not that resilient as humans in terms of being able to withstand difficult things. At some point we bend and then we break. And so our resilience in some aspects comes from being able to talk it through, being able to work through the things that we've experienced rather than just bottling them up. And so that's kind of where I was going with that. And I don't remember. I don't think I came up with the idea of her seeing a therapist. I think it was my husband who said, she's been through a lot. She needs something. I think that was him. He has contributed so much to this series. He really has.
Yeah.
So
and the last thing, go ahead, JR.
Nope, mine is the last one, so you get one more.
Okay. Well, the last thing that I'll bring up, because I know that a lot of urban fantasy readers, they kind of align with the, all slaying and no laying. They don't want the romantic squishy stuff. And then there's the other side that really does enjoy that. So with your romance, how do I put this? It's something that's unique is how quickly they get together, but yet how long the romance goes on for. Because he's very hot, but also there's a lot of romance that is what happens after the sex. And that I found was unique and fun to read, is that you develop who they are as a couple after they're quote unquote together. And I don't know if there's a question in there, but for our romance readers that like that kind of stuff, he is very hot. It is very satisfying, but it also develops them as real people afterwards. And I love that because there's still several books to go after they're officially together. And yet we see their relationships continue to grow and thrive. And I think that's kind of healthy for us to know that the romance goes on even after all of that's come together. So, all right, JR, take it away.
All right. So, whenever we do fantasy series, we always ask, would you live in this world, this alternative world, I guess, if you could?
Well, the alternative world is close enough to our world that in some ways we're already living in it. But if it turned out that the magical war was real, and I knew that there were monsters out there who could get you, and then if I could be part of the fight, then I would want to live in the world. But it's like any truly Lovecraftian setting where if you're not able to fight, you just might as well lie down and die. It's there because humans in this world are pretty much helpless against the monsters. So yeah, I would want to live in this world if I could be. I think I'd want to be working for Lucia in one of the neutralities. I don't think I'd want to be a magus.
Nice.
But Lucia has a lot of people working for her who are wardens, and wardens is the generic term for anybody who knows about the Long War and is doing something toward fighting it. And so, and not all of them are magi. And so if I could live in this world, I would want to be working in a neutrality, maybe in the neutrality library. I assume they have one. I don't know for sure. That's never come up. But be one of Lucia's helpers.
So at some point in time, is the Library of Alexandria going to get brought into the storyline?
You know what? It is okay. So there are named neutralities in this series. The bookstore is one of them. The Abernathy's is. And one of my favorite parts in one of the series, in one of the books, was coming up with other named neutralities that were recognizable. So the labyrinth on Crete, Minos' labyrinth, where the Minotaur lived, is one. The Fountain of Youth. And then there's the spiritual successor to the Library of Alexandria, which is called the Athenaeum. And it is a resource of all the magical and non-magical information you could ever want. So, but there's, in the new series, I think there's a need for new named neutrality, and the Library of Alexandria has been one of the possibilities for it. I haven't gotten to the point where I need to introduce that, but there really are so many different things you can do. But in the series, you've got Abernathy's, which is an oracle and only looks like a bookstore, and then you've got the Athenaeum, which is the Library of Alexandria. Basically, if you could catalog it, digitize it, and put it online. And so that's the answer. Is I'm not sure. There's space for it, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, this is the part of the interview, dear listener, dear viewer, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. It really does help, so do your part. With that, Melissa, how can readers and listeners at home get in touch with you?
Okay, so you can go to my website, which is melissamcshanewrites.com. And there's the button there that you can sign up for my newsletter, which is published monthly, and get updates on what's coming out next, what I'm writing, pictures of my cats, things like that. I also have my virtual storefront at nightharborpress.com, where you can get ebooks sold direct to you without having to buy a license from Amazon, as well as print books. You can get the 10th anniversary edition of my first book, Emissary, there, and we have some signed copies of things. And anyway, you can sign up to follow me on Amazon, which is another great way. They actually do they do a pretty good job of notifying people when a new book is coming out. I noticed that because I got 2 notifications this week from authors I'm following, and both of them I happened to know the release date was right around the time that they had sent me the notice. So follow me on Amazon. I'm on X. I'm on Facebook. I have a readers group on Facebook. It's kind of quiet these days, but it's there, and that's where you can get the truly up-to-date news and information. And sometimes I'll call for new ARC readers and things like that.
Okay, and this is the part where I'm supposed to remind you, because Jana said so in the side chat, that this is out in audio for those that care for that.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's really good
The
audio
whole series.
too.
The whole
And,
series is available in audio. Mm-hmm.
Do you sell the audio direct as well, or just on Amazon?
I'm working toward processing all the audio so I can sell it direct. I don't think it's available on the website yet, because I only just got the first book up, and
So soon.
Soon.
So
Okay. So right now it's on Audible, but soon you could buy it direct and then own it and download it through BookFunnel, like you can with the War Master series.
Yes.
And as usual, all of her links will be in the show notes. Jana, or Jena Rey, as you sometimes cosplay, how can we find you on the wild interwebs?
Oh, I'm easy to find. I'm really bad at this game of hide and seek. You can find me over at opalkingdompress.com, where myself and many of my other personalities hang out. I can be found on Facebook and on Amazon and on X and on a bunch of the things. Now, some of them I'm not good at updating, so you may find me there, but you may find it's been a long time, because some of these things I'm not so good at. But you can find me at Opal Kingdom Press, and you can find me on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you can find us, a dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blaze podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChutes, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters. We've got our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blaze Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandblazepodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandblazepodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from Stabby over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. These episodes aren't free to produce, and every penny helps, so we greatly appreciate those of you who throw a little bit of your spending money our way to keep the lights on. And be sure to put when you do that in the comment section that is for the podcast. And I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee till it pours out of their ears, and then we float to the sky, people. Yeah, that's not as good as swimming away. I'll have to come up with a better ending.
Stay with swimming away. Stay with swimming away.
Swimming away is
One of these days I try to get creative and it just doesn't work. You can feel it crash and burn. It's like the Hindenburg all over again. But if you use the link in the show notes, Podcast Grunt is the code. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blaze podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and things that go boom. And with that, I'm going to hit the end button. Don't cuss yet, Jana. Jiminy Cricket.